when we see a culture that lives in their heads so much, it's a symptom collectively of a culture that feels highly insecure. I just let it fall apart. I let the whole day trading portfolio go away. Basically all went away. I let the life we had in South Africa go away. I let the vision of the future and the kids go away. Come closer, get away. And when you're doing that, you don't make a lot of money.
It comes
Yeah.
back to love, and it's so beautiful. It's so poetic. Hey everyone, welcome to What If It's Possible. Today I'm sitting down with Scott Haber. And for anyone new here, What If It's Possible is at the intersection of ideas, stories, conversations that touch on healing, humanity, relationships, creativity, technology, and the future that we're all here to build. And it's a show for anyone who's ever looked at their life or the world around them and wondered, what if there's another way? And today's conversation is extra interesting with Scott. We're going to explore what the hidden patterns are that are shaping who we become and what happens when we finally learn how to see them. And Scott has a very interesting nonlinear path. Scott, you went from helping create an award-winning medical device as a biomedical engineer to 100xing a small day trading portfolio without any traditional finance background, and to interviewing people like Ray Dalio. You interviewed Gary Vee, Eckhart Tolle, and traveling through like non-Western and indigenous cultures on a scholarship. How did this journey all start? And welcome to the show, first and foremost. So glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy. God, I wish I had a clean through line for you. I'm still trying to put the pieces together myself of how one led to another. And as you said, it's nonlinear. I think the journey started with my own anxiety. I was at the University of Michigan and had like 3 startups I was working on, but I was so dislocated from myself and I felt so super freaking anxious. And at the same time, also numb. And I just knew, I didn't know what was off, but I knew something was off. I found a course on meditation. That one course led to like 14 courses on nature-based mindfulness and deep spiritual ecology. And it just started to elucidate this realization in me of, wow, I don't have to just be victim to random weather patterns internally. That I had some sense of, I couldn't control how I felt, but I had some sort of input to how I would feel based on how I was responding to myself. And once I got a glimpse of that, it was like everything started to connect for me. And it put into vantage point, like what really mattered, like what I could really focus on and what I really cared about. And happy to go into much more how that led to everything else. But that seemed to be the big shift for me about a decade and a half ago. Stop thinking that I was a victim to I was going to always feel this way, and starting to realize, well, I'm feeling a way and I actually have some power over that.
That's a really powerful thought, and I can really relate to what you just said also, as well, because it feels like our stories are so parallel in a lot of ways. When you had this realization, what did you do immediately afterwards to like take action to change your life, and what happened after that?
Truthfully, I went to my meditation teacher at the University of Michigan, and I was taking like 3 classes for this biomedical engineering degree over the summer. I'm in like multivariate calculus and thermal process engineering. And I looked at her and I broke down for the first time in my life. I said, I don't know what to do if I'm not thinking. I have no clue how to show up in the world without just thinking my whole way through it. And in that moment, I felt more lost than I ever had felt, but it was actually the start of the breakthrough. Because it was actually first seeing the prison I was creating and not trying to think my way through it. So it was actually, I never said this before, but it was actually the first moment it dropped out of my head in a very long time.
Yeah, I've become aware essentially of how much of our culture is so used to being trapped in our minds
Hmm.
and normalizing overthinking, normalizing
Hmm.
intellectualizing everything.
Hmm.
And it's really shocking. And I see it almost as like an addiction at this point that people aren't aware of, because everyone, not everyone, but almost everyone is it also addicted. So you look
Yeah.
around and it seems normal.
Yeah.
What did this prison look like for you, and
Yeah.
how did you
And I,
get out?
and I would say too, when we see a culture that lives in their heads so much, it's a symptom collectively of a culture that feels highly insecure.
Mm.
The protection mechanism is to go in the head. And so when we see it happening so widely in culture, the question are what's the conditions that's creating so widespread insecurity in the first place? And we can get into that, but that's what's fascinated most of my life. And that actually goes into how I got out of it. for a while, I thought that I could just meditate through it or just like walk in the woods more and do more yoga and fast more. And that works for a little bit.
Mm.
Like I'd feel really good and I'd be able to create this sense of flow until I realized, like, holy shit, I'm in a fucking prison of peace. I am hijacking my state to feel good, but it's not actually resolving any of the underlying things that make me feel bad in the first place.
Mm.
And so long as I'm relying on I need a few hours of meditation and a few hours of time in the woods, I actually have to stop my life and not confront it to feel okay. And I actually have to say life has to change and I have to do this, this, and this to feel okay. And so there was a point I got to where all the yoga, meditation, walking in the woods in the world did not work. And I just had a sort of breakdown where I'm like, is this Lyme's disease? Is this chronic stuff? I was living in South Africa with my ex-partner. She's studying baboons. We're living this very colorful, like crazy life. And I just couldn't change the way I felt. I had these tools for 8 years of yoga and meditation and walking in the woods, etc. But something happened where I couldn't think clearly, and it was for months straight. And it was like all of my chronic conditions I once had acted up all at once. And I remember going to this like traditional healer who just did like foot reflexology, and she prodded on my feet and just told me, without asking any medical history, she told me everything that I ever dealt with from an ailment physiologic standpoint. And I just felt so seen. And she also, it was this similar learning that I got 10 years previous with my other teacher, where I started crying. And I never cried at that point, where I'm like, holy shit, I feel so seen. And she's like, and I just want to let you know your intelligence isn't in your mind, it's in your body. And so I didn't realize, but both of these points, these people were trying to point me back to my body. And they were
Mm.
telling me how you're using all these practices and you've come so hard, so far, and you're so diligent and stubborn with it, but it's actually just keeping you more in your head the way you're doing it. And I don't think I saw it at the time, but the breaking moment tended to be, this was putting a lot of strain on my partner and I. And I had this terrible fever when I was in this condition, and it was like I couldn't get out of bed. I had this terrible fever. And I got upset with her, and we had just talked about, like, I don't want to project my upsetness with her. I'm just like so pissed with the way I feel and I don't know how to get out of it and I'm terrified. And so I got upset with her. And then in that moment I caught, I'm like, holy shit, I don't want to get upset with you like this. And I think for the first time in my life, I had healthy anger. And I was just like, I'm just so tired of feeling this way and I don't want to feel this way anymore. It was actually after that that the fever started. And then I never had that ailment again. And then from there on, this strange thing happened where one, the life we had together fell apart in the best way ever that it needed to. And it falling apart stimulated me to feel all the things that I never felt, that I was trying to manage away through meditation and yoga. I had no choice but to let it fall apart. And when it fell apart, the scary thing about it was of it falling apart was not that it would fall apart, but what I would have to feel if it did. And so I just let it fall apart. I let the whole day trading portfolio go away. Basically, all went away. I let the life we had in South Africa go away. I let the vision of the future and the kids go away. Felt all my fear, anger, and grief. And for the first time, I found ground that wasn't based outside of me. And enter that really started a long path of wanting to be truthful to what was happening in my body. And that's really where also executive coaching got born from.
It's a journey, man. And I can really relate to what you went through. Sometimes when we lose everything is when we can truly find ourselves. Like, who are we without the relationships, without the home, without the portfolios and the money and all those things? Without it all, like our very core, like what is that, you know? And I think that's a question that not a lot of people get the opportunity to examine. So it sounds funny for me to say this, but congratulations, like for that path that you got to go through. It's very special. It's very unique. It's very interesting.
Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Mm.
And it's this strange recipe where every time I feel turbulence, almost every single time, I can look back and be incredibly grateful for the gift because I realized my own forging was in it. And it was really just about how much I was able to embrace the intensity of it and not turn off.
Yeah. Before this happened, what did you how would you describe these feelings that you were managing away, just so people watching or listening can really understand that
Mhm.
experience and recognize that in themselves if they're doing the same thing without realizing it right now? There's potent medicine here, it feels like.
Yeah. There's a few signals to it. Confusion or looping thoughts is a smoke signal to resisted emotions. And the way I would go through that is I would just meditate and get super present. I'd learn how to take my attention away from the thought and anchor into something neutral. If I could just focus on the breath, if I could just focus on my steps in the woods, then it would bring me back to neutral and I would take the charge out of the loop or the confusion, but I actually wasn't resolving what the loop was pointing to. It would be the analogy I'd give here, and I'll give more evidence or more examples, but the analogy I'd give here is it's like if your car's making a squeaking sound and you somehow learn to put something over the squeaking sound. You're like, oh, I can put a little towel over this to buffer the sound. And it feels like you've resolved it, but you actually haven't looked under the hood to where the root of the issue is. And so confusion or looping thoughts was for sure a thing. And it would come up with my partner and I, it would come up with like a sense of what I wanted in our relationship, how much I felt we could explore and what we wanted together. Overwhelm is a big one. I was trying to write a book at the time and I'd feel overwhelmed and I thought that I would just need to take time to ground myself. But overwhelm, anytime there were, if I would slow it down, I would see, fuck, anytime that money comes up, I'm getting overwhelmed. And I thought what that meant I had to do was just become more clear about how I need to make more money. What I didn't realize was happening was I was overwhelmed and in fear and also resisting my own empowerment about how to make money. And so there were similar themes that would trigger overwhelm. And so whenever overwhelm comes up, it's a really good sign. Fatigue is also a pointer to it. Yeah, there were just lots of ways that I had fear about who I really was, fear about who I would become, fear about being in my empowerment. And I was hoping that the relationship and I was hoping that the book I was writing or the day trading would give me some anchor in my identity and that I could affix myself to that. And so long as I had this relationship and we had this dream and I was going to write this book or I was going to make this money day trading, I didn't have to, I knew who I was. I didn't have to fear who I was. And so that seems to be the major thing is this idea of becoming.
Yeah. Once you let everything go that wasn't true, that you tried to hold on to because of an identity that you thought you could, how did you transition into the identity or just your true self, essentially, that feels right for you now? Before the call, you said you felt like you were in your dharma, for example.
Mhm,
Like, how did you transition into that space to find that?
mhm.
What was that like? What did it feel like? What comes up?
Great question. Okay. I stopped resisting my vastness,
Mm.
which means I stopped resisting my want for money. I stopped resisting my desires. I stopped resisting my wants to explore. And I also stopped thinking that I needed to wait for any future moment to become who I was. So there was a way where I had this idea of once I do this, then I'll be that person and then I'd be ready. Once I have the book done, once I have the relationship, I still notice that pattern with my current partner. Once we're here, then I'm there. And something clicked where I remember I was sitting by a river one day and I was thinking about these interviews that I had done with Gary Vee, Eckhart Tolle, Martine Rothblatt, Wim Hof, Ray Dalio, Peter Diamandis, on and on. And I remember thinking like, wow, that's my moment. Like now I've arrived. And I remember thinking like, what was the point of that? Nothing really came about that besides being able to tell you and everyone who listens that I interviewed these people. Like, why was I asked to do these interviews? And the continual learning seems to be the moment you think that is going to come in the future is already here right now. The moment you're waiting for is literally here right now. The person you're wanting to become in the future is the person you are right now in the process of becoming. And if I think I'm waiting, then I'm missing the purpose in front of me. And so with that certainly happened with coaching where I stopped thinking that I needed I'm understanding this in the moment. So I'm trying to go slow here to really answer your question. I stopped thinking I needed to become someone else or develop more or get more skills to do the thing I want. And I started to see how that itself was my resistance. Where, like, if I do more, if I write the book, or if I learn more, or if I get these more skills, then I'm ready to do the thing I want. And I started to realize like that's actually just resisting this vastness that I'm ready and wanting to do it now. It's actually just not owning the desire that right now I want to do this. So there's a huge learning that's happening for me around this moment too with it. I always think that it's in the future because it's not perfect, but I'm missing in connection with there's part of me that's already ready to do it right now because I have the want and the desire. That doesn't mean it's exactly going to happen the way I think it is. That doesn't mean I might be ready to do X, Y, and Z in the way I think it is, but the experiment is ready to be run. And so I stopped waiting to run the experiment.
So tangibly,
Uh-huh.
you're describing essentially not needing any other permission, not needing some kind of certification, not needing any kind of other accolades to your name to actually do the thing that you wanted to do. So what was the thing that you wanted to do? Was it the
Mhm.
interviewing? Was it something different?
So at that point, and this is after the previous life fell apart, I started a coaching firm. And I knew that I wanted to help people become them. I knew at the point it was conceptual, but I knew that I wanted to be part of creating a life that we wanted to live and creating a community and a culture that we wanted to be a part of. And I wasn't exactly clear on how I wanted to do that. I thought it was through writing. And it just so happened, and I knew I also really wanted to make money doing it. So this seemed to be the key. Like these wants ran separate from each other. I was
Uh,
like, okay, I want to make money, but that seems like it's separate or shameful, and it can't be in my heart with wanting to help the world and people become. And so there was a way having the want for money was disowned and bad. And so the way I did it was just day trading. And so I was like, what if I just focus on my want for money and I do things I want to do? And so I
uh,
just started coaching people. And I just started coaching people based on the way I coached myself, where I stopped. I know I'm not exactly answering your question, but I'm trying to understand something myself here to get there. So I know I'm taking a circular route. I kind of just own my want for money. I was like, oh, I want to be paid to help people. I want to be paid to help people find their wisdom. I want to be paid to help people see through their confusion. I want to be paid to help people get the self development that I've done for 12 years. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know I wanted to be a coach. I kind of like coaching. Everyone in the grind was coaching, but I was just like, I want to be paid to help people. And so I kind of just owned that. And I owned that alongside my own work I was doing. And the more I was doing my own work, the more I modeled my coaching based off my own work. And then the more coaching clients I got. And the more coaching clients I got, the more opportunity I got to do my own work around it. And the more opportunity I got to do my own work around it, the more coaching clients I got. And so it just continually became this virtuous feedback loop.
Yeah, I feel like you're describing a lot of people who are going through the same coaching. Like so many people are leaving their jobs or experiencing some form of it's kind of like they're just waking up and realizing, oh, I don't want this life anymore, or something's not right for me. And they're exploring this. And a part of this journey is becoming a coach, but also needing to coach yourself and go through the process yourself. And then it feels like everyone who's behind you had like the older version of yourself that you wake up evolved from, so to speak, every single day. Those are all potential clients that you can help because you're doing it for yourself and you're your own story of success essentially as well, like as you go through that, which is really beautiful.
That's beautifully put. I love that
When
analogy.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. It's the thing that I wanted to lean in a little bit further on is how you
Hmm.
said you leaned into your want for money. I
Hmm.
think this is like counterintuitive for a lot of people maybe listening and watching because it feels, and I'm speaking from experience because I used to feel this myself, is that it feels sort of wrong or greedy or shameful to want money because of a
Yeah.
story around money.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to share more about how you came to this realization and what you did to shake yourself out
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. I was making money the savior and the
Uh,
oppressor at the same time. And so on one end, I was like, money, come here, come here, come here. You're going to save my life if I make enough day trading, if I crush this, or if I don't have it, let me just project that on dad. If I can't make it, dad maybe can help. So then dad becomes savior. So in one token, it's come here, come here, come here. And on the other token, it's like, and this shit's fucking bad. This stuff's dirty. This stuff's muddy. The people who are consuming their time chasing it are wasting their life. So here's what I was doing with money. Come closer, get away. Come closer, get away. Come closer, get away. And when you're doing that, you don't make a lot of money because you're constantly just giving it's like if you're dating, giving someone mixed signals. And underneath that was this, and I'll still like feel this on a much more subtle level, but underneath that was this incredible desire for money and this incredible desire to love money and to not see it as bad, but to see it as another way to be in my heart, to see it as another way to give from my heart and then to be returned from giving from my heart. And so it looked like for a while, a lot of anger, like, everyone has money, I'm fucking pissed, I don't, and not taking out on myself. It looked like a lot of fear when I stopped making other people the savior. What if I can't get saved? To get to a clean one of, oh, yeah, I just want to make a few 100,000 a year or whatever the number was. I want to make 30K a month. I want to make 40K a month. And I really want to be in my heart while I do it. And then it slowly became this different definition of alignment, which is if I'm doing work, the way I would say it now is I get paid to get my heart broken. That I'm so in love with the people I get to work with and their transformation that often when they leave and our time's up, it breaks my heart that our work together is over. And I know I'm in alignment if I'm getting paid to get my heart broken.
Yeah. As a coach, I've experienced this myself where it's almost like watching your child graduate or something like that. Like it brings
Yeah.
tears to your eyes to see the person that they have become on their own, you know?
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful thing, and I don't know if people realize like the how it feels, this type of service. For me, it's
Yeah.
what wakes me up, you know, like when I every day that I have a coaching call afterwards, I
Mhm.
recognize just how amazing it feels to
Mhm.
be like, oh my God, like I literally helped change someone's life, you know, in that way. And
Yeah.
it's in a even in a small way on like a day-to-day basis. It's changing the people's lives and it's really, really cool.
And you have to break your heart and personalize it. You have to let it break your heart and personalize it, or you can't actually stay in connection with them. Like I had two key moments this past year that I just wanted to share,
Mm.
where I had a client that I've worked with for a while and our time had ended. And I noticed I wanted to dissociate and doubt the work we did together. And I had to go to the doubt, and underneath it was just grief of like, holy shit, we've done so much good work together, and his life is fundamentally changed. And I can't actually stay in connection with him if I don't have that. Because otherwise I'll just doubt, have we done enough? And I'll, oh my God, he's leaving. Did we do enough? And underneath it is like, oh my God, we've done so much good work. What a shame. And I'm so grateful that we've had this time together. And there was one more moment this year that was really big. But I run this group called Pattern Interrupt, which I'll share more about later. And at the end, everybody was just appreciating one another on how meaningful the space was individually and how much they got from each person. And I noticed a little bit of numbness in me. I was like, huh, that's strange. And especially when they're appreciating me, there's a little numbness. And I closed down my laptop after working on this program for 6 months and being with these people so deep for 3 months. And I just bawled for hours. I realized, oh my God, what a heartbreak and what a gift to see these people's transformation and to realize how much I cared to be with them in it, that I wanted to give so much to be with them on the journey. That if I didn't have that heartbreak, I would have stayed slightly numb and not actually enjoyed it fully, and it wouldn't have been worth it because I wouldn't have got the ROI and my heart open.
Yeah. It's funny how it works both ways. Like they get something out of it and truly you as the service provider or like someone who's a coach or a healer, if you will, or just a part of the process gets something out of it too. And that's rewarding. That's a rewarding life to me, you know, doing work that where you feel rewarded from the things that you're doing. It's not just for a paycheck anymore. It's something deeper than that,
That's
something
right.
soulful, something heartful almost.
Mhm,
So with these clients that you're working with now, if you are helping them identify the patterns in their identity, like you did for yourself, like how you coach
mhm,
yourself, what does that look like practically?
I would call it emotional massage. So
Interesting. Tell me more.
any of the usual challenges people have. My team keeps burning out. I can't find the thing I want to do. I feel unfulfilled. I'm crushing it, but I'm not joyful. Me and my partner aren't happy. Heard a huge diversity. And I am just asking as pointed, open-ended, curious, and non-partial or questions without agenda that I can. I'm just asking the best fucking questions I can. So it
Yeah.
feels like I'm scanning the body of this problem until we are getting closer and closer and closer to the knot. because it's like if you ever got a massage, like you might, if you're really into sort of your body and your posture, you're like, okay, my neck hurts. But if I can really slow down, that's referred pain and it's just coming from here, from the subscapular region. And if I can actually just work on this one trigger point in the subscapular region, that's where all the tension's coming from. And that's where the bottleneck is, where everything downstream can heal. Sure, this still needs support, but the main source of tension is actually beneath where I think it is. And so when someone comes to me with a problem or a pattern, we're just asking more and more refined questions to see what the tension actually is, where it actually points them to. Because whenever we're in a repeated problem, it's a place that an internal pattern's running, and we're actually repeating the problem because we want to learn about the pattern and move through it. And to the extent we can see the pattern clearly, they have a chance to move through it, and the problem space naturally redefines itself.
This is a really interesting analogy that you just put out. If we were to apply this to an example, what
Mhm.
would that look like, Scott? Like, could you give us
Mhm.
one that's seems common for most of your clients?
Sure. I'll tell you a team. I work with a company, and this is just one of my favorite examples. So my sales process is questions only. 'Cause I just want to understand the problem and see if I'm the right person to solve it. And they're like, we keep having burnout and et cetera. And they're like, we've tried empathy, but we took Brene Brown's course, but empathy doesn't seem to work. And I looked at them and I go, oh, okay. So how much is what you're calling empathy just your fear to upset one another? And they looked at me and their jaws dropped and their eyes got big and the contract was sold. So what they called burnout, there's a few things in there, but one of the key things was they actually were afraid to say no to each other, to themselves, and to their clients. And as they continue to not say no, because if I just told you, Jimmy, you're going to say no to me and you're just going to be so happy about it, you wouldn't be afraid to say no. You're afraid to say no because the emotional consequence you assume comes with saying no. So they were afraid if they say no, that they're going to upset their clients, that they're going to lose clients, that they might go under, that then they'd have to fire staff. And as they resisted all of that fear, they were actually creating that outcome. The employees were burning out, they couldn't deliver, they had too many clients, et cetera. So the whole work with them was just welcoming that outcome and the emotions they associated with it.
And for this example specifically, once they've identified that and you now have this knot, how did you even get to that point to understand that that was the knot, so to speak, so quickly? Like, what are you doing within yourself to find
Hmm.
that, or how's it coming to you?
Years and years of practice. Yeah. It's like, how do you learn how to swing a bat really well? You just keep practicing more and more until you get the technique and you get a feel for it. It's a feel thing. You learn how to read a room and how to paddle a river. Where I'm both watching for the clues in you, because you're, as let's just say I was coaching you, you're always telling me these little clues of where we need to go. And I can hear it if I find the little moments of tension that come up. And then so I'm watching in you where you actually want to go, and I'm doing my best to get out of the way and just let you lead by pointing you with the right questions where the ball actually is. And so the things it takes in me is one, making sure I'm not leading you anywhere. Making sure I'm actually letting you follow the lead, making sure I'm staying super curious and I'm just operating from curiosity and I don't need to get any results because I will get us out of where you need to go if it's based on me needing to get results. What else is super helpful? And that my heart is open. If I'm letting you lead, if I'm not needing you to get anywhere and I don't need results and my heart is open to you, then at the same time, I want your best outcome because it's coming from my love for you. And I'm also letting your empowerment guide us to where it needs to go.
Yeah, that sounds like a solid coaching practice. I think some people have this misconception that coaching is essentially you
Yeah.
telling them what to do, like a coach in basketball or something like I run 10
Yeah.
laps. And it really is more so us guiding the process so that they can uncover what they need to uncover. And we are just setting up a stage almost for them to speak their truth or to recognize something within themselves, to see the nail in their forehead, so to speak, that they can.
Yeah. My favorite quote here is if advice worked, nobody would need it anymore.
It's funny 'cause so many people love to give advice. I can
That's
relate
right.
just as please go ahead.
I just said that's right. I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, it's funny 'cause I as a man, and growing up always as a man and being around other men, like it's such a normal, natural thing to want to jump in and offer advice and offer some kind of cure that you think you know, or some kind of
Yeah.
solution that you think you know because of your experience. With this pattern methodology that you have with your clients and helping all the people that you have so far, how do you think this is going to start affecting relationships when these people start identifying their own patterns? Like, what does that look like for the collective?
Mhm. Yeah, it becomes so interpersonal one-on-one relationships or relationships with teams and cultures, which do you want to hear about?
Maybe first into relationships and then into the cultures would be fantastic.
What I notice happen in interpersonal relationships is there's a lot more love flowing. Doesn't matter if it's romantic, sexual, or platonic. They become relationships where you can really feel love flowing. And for the people who really go there, you see that your relationships are the awesome training ground and practice arena to heal. So we got wounded in relationships. So the best way to heal is also in relationships. So you see that with the people that you're closest with them for a reason. Some people it's by proximity, but often we're choosing people because they bring up our shit. We're actually choosing people to be close to because they trigger us and because we want to move through the trigger. So what I notice happen in interpersonal relationships when people are really doing this work is they become this place where you stop trying to shy away from conflict and you actually get excited about it because you see, oh, fuck, there's so much for me here. This conflict keeps happening. And if I stop making you need to be the person to change, I see there's a part of the growth that I wanted in this conflict. And it's the best place for your personal development. And then the symptom of that seems to be that there's just so much more love flowing. They feel so much more clean and they feel so much more generative because all the energy isn't going to how do we escape conflict or how do we blame and attack one another or how do we sort of suppress things so we don't have to bump into that thing. And once that happens, all this energy frees up where the relationships themselves actually become super creative. It's something I'm looking at with Pattern Interrupt, where the last step seems to be creation or love, and those things seem to not be different. It's a whole nother topic. Another time we could probably talk about that.
No, it's good. You know, I've been interviewing a lot of people on this show, and something that keeps coming up, and it's funny that you say this, and I get a good sense of where it comes from, but it's just funny to hear from so many other people that the end result is always looking through life through a lens of love, through the heart. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to like a neuroscientist, doesn't matter if I'm talking to an HRV biohacker specialist, to
Yeah,
someone like you who's a specialist in pattern recognition and coaching, it comes
yeah,
back to love.
yeah.
And it's so beautiful. It's so poetic. It's so
hmm
amazing that that is sort of like a key to unlocking so many secrets about life, that we just need to come find love again. And I know it sounds cheesy to some people. People are like, you can't solve problems with love, but it's
Yeah.
happening. People are doing it.
Another way to say that, Jimmy, is love itself is creation, and creation itself is love.
The process of birthing, for example, and
Yeah.
creation of something in the world, birthing something into the world, is an act of love itself also. Is that what you mean?
hmm Two people come together because love and their desire to create. You build a project because you have a passion for it. Relationships
Yeah.
happen and you create something new that couldn't have happened without you two being in relationship out of love and affinity for one another to relate to one another in the first place. So this like it's like the fuel the world is running on when it's clean is love and creation.
Yeah. I think as interpersonally, this
hmm
love, this creation, I mean, if I can get vulnerable really quick, for me, I went through my own experience where as a partner, you want to show up so perfect in a relationship. You always want to be strong. You want to
Right. Right.
be this vision of a person that's not almost unrealistic.
Yeah.
And the pattern that I recognized in that in myself was always running away from anything that would deem me imperfect. And
Mm.
anything that was a mistake is a sign of that. And I discovered that to actually take that head on and actually embrace my imperfection and to
Yeah.
speak about it so openly and freely with my partner was one of the most bonding moments and experiences we've ever had. And I just want to share the story because I think it's important for people to recognize that these patterns that we run away from, these like they're almost like these shadows that we don't want anyone to see.
Mhm.
Some of these are like the most potent ways for us to just feel so good in our bodies again and connect so deeply with the people that are around us by just not being afraid of them and embracing them, just like you're embracing of wanting money. Like embrace these
Yeah.
shadows and let them not
Yeah.
rule you anymore. in the background.
You can't connect with people if you're running away from yourself because you can't
Yeah.
connect with people if you're not connected to yourself.
Yeah. It's hard to see sometimes too, because like when I was going through it myself, you
Yep.
think that this is just it's normal. It's you feel like, oh yeah, like I shouldn't be that. And that's like the story that you create. And then you don't realize that by doing that, you're kind of creating this cycle, this loop that you're constantly in. And that is the pattern itself. And you're
Hmm.
trying to break your patterns in your life, but you're running a pattern just by doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the biggest farces that I'm trying to help break in myself and in people is the pattern of you need to be fixed or improved. That
Yeah.
there's anything that needs to be improved upon or anything that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Self-understanding tends to be a more effective route.
Yeah. There's like two sides of that, right? Like wanting to
Hmm.
heal and be fixed, and then learning to improve on something that could just be simply better that you would enjoy doing. Like wherever you kind of sat with this, because I sit with this myself
Hmm.
of like wanting to improve as a person. Maybe it has nothing to do with anything substantially being wrong with me as at my core or my
Hmm.
worth as a
Hmm.
person for being
Hmm.
alive.
Hmm.
But it's okay to want to go through and be able to just learn and grow as a person, but not because there's something wrong with me,
Hmm. Hmm.
but just for the act of doing it. Yeah, that's where I'm sitting with it, at least right now. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
intellectual right now.
So the key
Embodying it is next.
distinction for you here is the difference between want and should.
Yeah.
And the different feeling it leads to in the body. So if you track for a moment, I should be perfect. I should have this. I should be this partner. I should do this, hold space better. And you see what that feels like in your body. It's usually some constriction, tightness, or rigidity. Your muscles have to constrict. But if you find the want underneath, which is, oh yeah, I want to improve. I want to be the best version of myself. There's a heart opening and a softness that happens. It just so happens finding the want ends up being a really good hack for becoming the person you want to be. I want to give a quick example of this because yesterday I was on with a client and it seemed so counterintuitive. We were taking a walk and he's like, I'm spending 3 hours on research for this product and like I should be doing other things. He's like, I don't get why I keep doing this. Like, how do I break this habit? I don't get it. He's like, I just need to break this habit. Like, what do I do differently? And like, what he doesn't see is the habit, the thing that's reinforcing the habit is the way he's trying so hard to fix himself and so hard to break it. So most of us are using this like, I need to get out of this. I should be doing differently. Don't spend so much time doing this, thinking that's an effective technique, but it's actually the thing that keeps the merry-go-round running. And so the counterintuitive thing is to actually find enjoyment in the thing you're trying to change. So in his case, he's like, I should have been working and I spent like 3 hours finding the right washer and dryer. And I was like, what do you think was great about that? And like he couldn't see it. And as he's beating himself up, he's like, it tended, it was quiet for my daughter. And so she wouldn't get bothered. I have a young daughter. And I know it's a good product. So we're not going to have to replace it. I'm not going to have to deal with it down the road. And it was like all these things. And I got the right price for it and it's highly quality. I go, oh, it sounds like it did a lot for you. He's like, no, but like I shouldn't have spent all that time on it. And I go, oh, cool. So, like, if your best friend, if Jake told you he spent 3 hours making sure he got the right washer or dryer so his daughter wouldn't be bothered by it, so she could sleep, so he wouldn't have to pay more, so he wouldn't have to deal with it in the future, what would you say to him? He's like, well, he did a fucking awesome job. I go, oh, that's funny because it seems like you're doing that for everything. And he just started cracking up. The exact thing he's trying to fix and change that he's shaming himself about he would view for someone else how good of a job they're doing. And the strange thing that happens there is it took him a while. We spent a while. He was gripping on to all the self attack. But once he got out of the self attack and he enjoyed how thorough he was at getting the right product and service, he goes, oh my God, he goes, this is the feeling I'm missing. And I go, yeah, because what you want isn't actually this perfect linear progress. It's the sense that you're enjoying your life. And what happens when you enjoy your life is you have a life you enjoy. And it's not from changing yourself, it's just learning how to enjoy it. And so it's the hack is enjoying what you're doing now. And then the key I'm looking for in the transformation is when he stopped attacking himself after he's like, oh, by the way, I'm so fucking pissed at this contractor. I'm like, that's right. Let me hear it. Because finally, when he had no ground to attack himself and he started to enjoy these things he said he wanted to change, then the anger got to go outward at someone but himself. That means we made huge ground on the pattern because he moved from attacking himself to anger outward, which is, I actually enjoy spending all this time making sure I'm getting the right products for my family. But these things happening with the contractor, I'm not okay with, and I'm not going to attack myself about that I'm not okay with. And that's actually where I can buy back time. But you have to see through the self attack, which is this counterintuitive thing where you actually have to learn how to enjoy these things.
Yeah, it's so many of us, and I'm included in this. I did not ever see this after so much self help and all these things I've done doing therapy, how
Mhm,
much we speak to ourselves, not in the same way that we would speak to other people.
mhm,
And it was a huge takeaway for me. It's like, oh, I need to speak to myself. And we hear this in books, but like we never actually do the thing of I need to speak to myself the way that I would talk to a friend. And we hear this intellectually, but how
right.
many of us practically do it and embody this? And I think there's like a gap that I've discovered in my own like journey as well, like right now, like how much we know something. And there's a difference between knowing something and doing something. And there's that gap is where the transformation like literally
Mhm,
happens. And
mm,
I love your example because it's so true. And it's also I hear being grateful and seeing optimism in everything that you're doing, seeing the joy in everything,
mhm.
and sometimes life is simple, or it sounds like, it's just being able to see the goodness in everything. If you want a happy life, just be happy, like do things that make you happy every day.
There, I would say too on the self-talk portion, it is, but it's not just positive self-talk. Because if I was your friend and you were like, I don't like this, and I'm like, Jimmy, you're doing a great job. You're always doing great. You're like, dude, I don't feel like I'm doing great. It's the physical, it has to be embodied. You have to actually enjoy it and take pleasure in it. And so that's just a key flip. And yeah, around joy, my favorite teacher would say joy is the matriarch in a family of emotions, and she won't come into your house unless all of her children are welcome. So it's this strange paradox, which is when I learn to actually welcome what I'm uncomfortable about or what feels bad, it actually creates a whole lot more space for joy and what feels good. Both of them have to run together. They create one another.
Going back to what you said also about the feeling, the embodiment of joy or of something that you enjoy doing. I
Mhm.
think this is the gap between like imposter syndrome or people not feeling they're their authentic self. Essentially, like this idea, it's intellectually thinking something versus also feeling at the same time. There's not an alignment in those two realms. So many of us are head knowledge, right? All in our heads, intellectual, that we don't
That's
even
right.
feel our body. So we think, I am confident, I can
Mhm.
do this. Of course, yeah, we think that, but we don't
Yeah.
feel it because so many of us are so disconnected from our bodies these days. And
Yeah.
that's the gap that's happening. And when we
Yeah.
can connect it all together, that's how people experience embodied leadership, embodied confidence. And that's where that term comes from, like embodiment. And I think I don't know, it's like a secret formula is just get back in your body, get out of your head.
Your identity isn't just formed by your thoughts. Beliefs and emotions are there too. And so what people will constantly do is if they don't actually believe there's something worth the money, worth the partnership, worth the job, because they only hold it in their head, if that, then they're going to constantly sabotage it because their self-identity isn't in alignment with the life they're living.
Yeah, yeah. I went through this journey myself where I first learned about mindset, right? Mindset. And I think a lot of people
Yeah.
get confused when they do this mindset work and it doesn't always work for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other half that I learned myself that people are missing out is the body piece, the
Mm,
nervous system, so many other things that it all needs to be in alignment. Otherwise, you're just you're chasing one thing after the other. And yeah, it's where self-sabotage, procrastination, all these things kind of
mhm,
happen. Scott, for folks who have gone through like their pattern and understanding and they've done the work on a individual level, how do you think as a society right now, we're like operating in patterns that they don't realize that needs to be
mm,
disrupted? Do you see that? Can you apply that to like a macro scale from your
mhm.
perspective now with everything that you know?
Yeah, great question. And that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast. So I've recently launched one, Beneath the Pattern, and it's trying to explore this whole question of how do we apply patterns to what's going on as a culture, as a country, and as a society. Once you see it, it's kind of everywhere. Like right now, I've got a series going on AI, and if you really have your finger on the pulse and you're tracking not just the words people are saying about AI, but the way they're speaking about it, you'll start to see the way they're talking about it. AI feels really similar to peak crypto frenzy, and that felt really similar to the mania of the dot-com bubble. And I'm sure people probably talked about it similarly with the gold rush. So what the fuck is going on there? Or if you really look at some of these wars, you're like different wars with different countries, but it feels like the same fundamental thing is being fought over. So what's happening there? And this is where a lot of my focus is right now. Scaling the one-on-one work to teams and then also applying this to culture to see how we can look in the mirror as a culture because it's a ripe topic.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you said that. It's funny because our stories are so parallel. Like your coach, like I had a similar story shifting out of my life as well, and that's what the heart of this show is really also about as well.
Mm,
It's really digging into what is the deeper story on an individual level and how do we ripple that out to society and the rest of the world, because I think at our core we are sort of like a hive mind right now with the internet.
mhm,
People share something and then everyone is immersed in that, and that becomes a part of their psyche. Hearing this, and it enters into their subconscious one way or the other. And now with
mm,
AI, people are literally using that as like their second brain. Like they describe,
mhm,
oh, my second brain is onto that.
mhm,
But what
mhm,
happens when, as a collective, we are all are in a place where maybe the collective overall is not well, or is in a pattern
mm,
that is not serving the greater good? What does
mhm,
that start to look like? How will
mm.
that affect the world if we continue on that path where we stay in these patterns? And I really love the work that you're describing and this podcast that you're launching. I would love to check it out myself as well.
Mhm.
And congratulations on launching a podcast.
Thank you. I would say too, that's the central question that drives me and that got me into my work with individuals. And that seems to scale as I scale, which is it's this really weird conundrum. And this is my lens for it and answer, but it's this really weird conundrum. If we live in, like, we have the most resources ever in the modern world, we're so resource rich and physically secure,
Hmm.
yet we also seem to feel more unsafe psychologically, more insecure psychologically than ever before. So how the hell do those two things line up? And my sense is they actually create one another.
Say more. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think safety isn't in the resources we had, but in the way we learned to get resource because you become a person who's resourceful and then resourced. And so as more and more we've lost the need to be resourceful because all the resources were created and given to us, we've actually lost our resourcefulness. And our safety wasn't based on if we had resources evolutionarily, it was based on our resourcefulness. It was based on because I always struggle because this was so many years of thinking to really distill this into like a perfect few sentences. I don't know how I'll say it perfect, but I'll just do it anyways. If you think of hunter gatherers, they weren't safe whether they had food or not. They were safe because they had the ability to go hunt. They weren't safe whether they had people or not, but because they had the ability to relate. So because there's no resources and the way our bodies adapt, there's nothing that's ever promised or guaranteed. Safety and the feeling of wellness was never actually based on what you had and the external guarantees. It was actually based on how much you trusted your own ability. And in a world where more and more the trend I see in AI is the perfect trend setter of it, we're just trying to guarantee our needs are going to be met, that we're going to have resources. What's getting withered is our trust in our own ability to do it. What's getting withered is the skillfulness. And as that happens, you're giving people more and more things, but they didn't actually have to develop their ability to get the things. So they never got the learned safety that came with the result. So like the best way I'd explain this to give a clean example is just think of like communication technology. We went from talking in person to eventually writing letters, to eventually emails, to eventually text, to eventually emojis, to eventually AI prompting. All along the way, we made connection easier to get, but we made it harder for ourselves to create connection because we lost the skill that needed to happen to create connection because technology tried to automate for it. So what happened is even though connection's more widely available, people feel more lonely because they lost the ability to connect. And you can find that pattern happening everywhere with competency, with autonomy. You can't unsee it once you see it.
Yeah, the through line that comes up for me when you say this, and I agree with what you're saying. It's a disempowerment across all levels,
Yep.
and we're in a world now where people feel disempowered to trust themselves, like you said,
Yep.
disempowered from their sense of freedom, their sense of agency, their control over their life. Like truly, it's like kind of being waved in their face that you don't have much control. Truly, like you
Hmm.
might not see the bars of the cage, but it's there to some degree, and it's a part of it's self-created. The other
Hmm.
part of it's also systemic and all these other things. And yeah, it's a wild world, and I appreciate what your thoughts on it. I completely agree. If I could ask you one last question, Scott, knowing this now, if you had to use your imagination, what do you think the answer is for us to move past this?
It's a strange answer, but the best one I have right now is coming into your body and feeling your emotions. And I'm just going to give a little bit of reason for why that is. The answer tends to be empowerment. And when we have people who are empowered, we create teams, cultures, and communities who are empowered. And so long as we're making everybody else what's wrong, or everything else needs to change so it can be fixed, we're playing out the same pattern, or technology, the thing that's going to fix it, we're playing out the pattern. That it's either the world that's wrong and needs to be changed, or this thing will solve it. But when you feel your own emotion and take responsibility for it, that's the one domain that never can actually be about anyone else. Sure, other people are stimulating it, but when you look at something like that, like I might feel like, wow, Jimmy, I'm so angry because you did this. Where another person, if you were like, let's just say, I'm like, oh, Jimmy, I'm so angry because you were 10 minutes late. Where another person might be like, wow, I'm so glad you were 10 minutes late. I needed to review. And so the way we feel is always about us, and taking ownership for the way we feel. It seems to be a highway to empowerment because it stops trying to change everything else, everyone else in the world to feel different. And there's this strange paradox when we don't try and change everything and everyone else to feel different, and we just own and allow how we feel. We want change because our whole life isn't based on resisting our emotions. And then when we change, the world that's in alignment to us, the world that's reflected to us starts to change around us.
Yeah, you're describing externalization versus doing the inner work. And
Hmm.
when we start to change the inner work, the perception of the world around us starts to change, even at that level.
Hmm.
But there are also people that believe that literally things that are completely outside of our control start to just truly change around us as well.
Hmm.
And I can speak to this truth through my own life experience right now that this is the way. And you can do it the other way, externalizing things, but it's very difficult. It's very challenging. It's very heart
Hmm.
aching. It's very not fun, and it's like climbing up a ladder, like a mountain on your hands and feet. That's what it feels like to me, like compared to the
Hmm.
alternative.
Yeah,
So,
ambition
words
might
of
bring
wisdom.
success, but it doesn't usually bring joy.
Yeah. And feeling your emotions is how you come back to truly loving yourself, having empathy, all those things. There's a reason why I think people talk about how some of the most successful people, it's not the most intelligent people. It's usually the people who have the most emotional intelligence. It's because they can feel themselves, feel other people. And I think it's what you're describing. So no matter what, being able to listen to your feelings is huge. So
Mhm.
thank you for that. Scott, this conversation, I feel like we could talk for hours on this, and
Yeah,
I am so glad that we were able to connect and have this conversation, man. I really truly enjoyed this, and
mm,
thank you for doing what you do and coming onto the show.
likewise, man. It's been a real joy for me.
Yeah, likewise. If anyone else is also experiencing the joy that I'm experiencing, how do they find you online? Where can they
Yeah.
hear more from you and learn more about you?
Cool. A few different places. I'll post most frequently on Instagram at Haber Scott. Sure, you'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Post on LinkedIn too. And then I have a podcast, Beneath the Pattern. That's just Beneath the Pattern on Spotify. And if you're interested in this work, Pattern Interrupt. It's probably the best way to get involved with it right now. We will launch again in mid-September. So you could contact me. I'm sure we'll be running a workshop before then for people who want to get a taste of it. I look at all my DMs on Instagram, so that's a really good way to get in touch with me.
That's amazing. Thanks, Scott. If this conversation with Scott opened something inside you, share it with someone thinking deeply about personal growth, maybe the patterns that they're living out, the future of the world that we're creating. Because at the end of the day, I think the more that we spread this work, like that is something that we all, each and every one of us can do is like spread awareness. And these types of conversations, by having these conversations, sharing them, that's how we all can contribute to doing that. And I'm sure Scott and I both would appreciate that as well, because we're doing it for a completely different reason than success or notoriety. Like, it's really to benefit everyone at the end of the day. And sorry if I'm speaking on your behalf, Scott, but it's just a safe assumption based on our conversation. But and that's what the show is going to be all about. It's really here to explore the humans that are shaping the future and how we can affect ourselves and do that inner work that Scott described, feeling and how it affects the world around us in a really, really, really big way. So yeah, if whether or not it's if you're interested in becoming more conscious enough to change the world, thanks for being here. We're just getting started and looking forward to more of these amazing conversations. And thank you again, Scott, for coming onto the show. I really appreciate you.
Likewise. Thank you, Jimmy.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.